Hey everyone, it's Michelle.
And Brandy.
And this is Spooky Shit. So this week we are talking about people who have disappeared without a trace.
Oh yeah, I start and I'm going to talk about Ruth Wilson.
Okay, and I'm going to be talking about Melanie Ethier.
Warning, this episode may contain graphic details. Listener discretion is advised.
All right.
I like your... Oh, yeah, I start.
Oh, yeah.
Shit.
So, I feel like it's kind of long. Or maybe I just wrote big.
One of the two.
It's one of the two. To be fair, it's a small notebook.
Okay, yes.
So, Ruth Wilson was born on January 31st, 1979 in England. I'm not sure what part of England.
It's all the same.
I'm guessing it's where she disappeared, though, in Surrey.
Okay.
I think...
Oh.
Surrey?
I think it's Surrey.
Surrey.
Sorry. No, I'm
sorry.
not English. I'm sorry. I don't know what that was. As soon as you said England, I was already like, England. I'm sorry, I'm annoying.
Ruth was born to Ian and Nesta Wilson. In 1982, when Ruth was just 4 years old and her sister Jenny was just a few months old, Nesta died.
Oh, that's
her
sad.
Mom. Yeah. Growing up, they were told that she died from an accidental fall from the stairs. They learned later that wasn't true.
Okay. This sounds like a murder mystery as well as like a missing person.
I don't know. You just have to wait and see.
I'm excited.
So, less than a year after Nesta's death, Ian remarried to a woman named Karen Bowerman.
Less than a year?
Yeah.
That's very fast. I mean, I guess everyone grieves in different ways.
True.
Or he killed her. I don't know where the story's going.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Okay.
Both Ian and Ruth's stepmom worked as teachers. I'm guessing that's how they met.
Oh, yeah, probably.
But yeah, Ruth enjoyed reading, going on bike rides, and loved music. She actually played the electric guitar and piano, which I think is badass.
Yeah, good for you, Ruth. Dang.
She also had a Saturday job working in a music shop and was a popular local babysitter.
Oh, okay.
She was studying for her A-levels at the Ashcombe, or it might be Ashcombe, at the Ashcombe School, 6th form, when she disappeared.
Honestly, English school stuff is so weird to me. They're like A-levels. I'm like,
yeah.
What does that
I know, I had
mean?
to look it up. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, and they're like 6th form, and I'm like, you're just making this up right now. You're just saying words.
Well, A-levels, from what I kind of like got from it, it was kind of almost like equivalent to our AP classes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was just kind of like it preps you for university. The only like difference that I kind of gathered was that here AP is like optional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, only for those elite smart kids.
The really smart ones, yeah.
AKA not me. And in England, A-levels was required for like university entrance.
Oh, okay. They're probably smarter than us
I mean,
over there,
I still didn't really get exactly what it was, but that's kind of like what I kind of
your understanding of it.
Yeah, my understanding of it. I might be way off.
I know. Any English listeners, please email us any corrections. We don't know.
But I do know that 6th form was basically like their that's what they call high school.
Oh, okay. I thought they called high school college.
Do they?
Oh my god, am I making that up? My very limited knowledge is based on Skins UK, watching that when I was a teenager. And I feel like they would say college, but now it's been so long, I'm like, am I just making that up? I don't know.
I don't know, man. She attended her local church regularly and was actually a member of the choir.
Wow. Seems like she was doing a lot.
Yeah, she was busy.
I know.
Now we get to the juicy stuff.
Yikes.
According to a friend of Ruth, Catherine Mayer, around October 1995, Ruth developed the belief that her biological mother's death was not as she had been told.
Do you know, like, what made her think that?
No, and that's what makes this case, like, so interesting. I'm like, something happened that she became suspicious.
Yeah, you don't just wake up one day and you're like, I don't think my mom really died like that. Like, what happened? What changed?
I would like to know too. It only gets weirder.
Okay.
So yeah, she actually traveled to London to examine her mother's death certificate. And then it was then she discovered that she was hanged on December 10th, 1982, and it was ruled a suicide.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, I guess it makes sense for you not to tell your kids if they're that young. Oh, your mom killed herself.
Yeah. True, but like...
If she actually did it.
I don't know.
I don't know where the story's going. I'm just trying to build suspense.
It's sketchy.
Yeah. I mean, once they reach a certain age, though, like teenagers, you could be like, all right, you guys can know the truth now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cool to keep lying about.
Well, yeah, she was 16, so that means her younger sister was 12.
Yeah, I feel like that's old enough. I mean, it'd probably be awful to hear, get them therapy immediately after, but, like, it's good to know.
No, definitely.
Like, hey, you guys could have mental health issues too. It runs in the family.
True. But yeah, it was after the discovery of the true nature of her mom's death that things got weird. And only a few months after she discovered that, she disappeared.
Oh, man.
Her friend Catherine also said that Ruth asked if she could come live with her when she settled, because she was set to move to Sheffield, South Yorkshire. God damn.
Mm-hmm. Recognize that from Doctor Who.
Oh, do you?
Sheffield, of course. Yeah. It sounded cooler in my head.
Ruth never did follow through, though, because she actually went missing a few weeks after Catherine moved.
Wow.
Like, literally, right after.
Oh, no.
Catherine's mother recalled that Ruth had slept over not long before she disappeared and had been adamant that she did not want to go back home, but she never explained why.
What the fuck?
Sus.
I feel like, I mean, I'm sure the mom's regretting not doing anything now, but I feel like that would seem like suspicious if they weren't telling you what was happening. I'd be like, all right, something's fucking happening in this kid's house.
Yeah.
But also teenagers are dramatic, so...
But still, like, I don't know, that's sus.
Yeah, I'm sure she really is kicking herself now.
Damn, I didn't even think about that, but she probably is.
Yeah.
Catherine also states that Ruth had talked about running away, but never suicide.
Oh. Shit.
Ruth's parents refute claims that her home life was unhappy. But I don't know about that, man. Doesn't sound
I mean, something happened in her home life to make her be like, I don't think my mom died by accident, so I don't know how happy it was.
Exactly. Her parents are just sus. Or her dad and her stepmom, I should say. But yeah, a school friend, Ben Anderton, says that she ran away from home a month before her final disappearance and hid at his house in Betchworth.
Okay.
So she was basically, like, leading up to her disappearance, she wasn't home a lot.
Yeah, and she was, like, running away, trying to stay with friends and stuff. Something was definitely fucking off, dude.
Yeah, very. And on the Saturday before her disappearance, Ruth worked her usual shift at a music shop in Dorking, and then went for a meal with her ex-boyfriend, Will Kennedy, and another friend, Neil Phillipson.
With her ex-boyfriend? Were they, like, friends still?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Both Will and Neil stated that after their meal, Ruth paid and told them it would be something to remember her by.
That's super ominous. What the fuck? If my friend said that to me, I'd be like, want to come spend the night for a few nights? You don't
like,
seem
what
well.
What are you doing? Where are you going?
Yeah, come
You
over.
okay? But yeah, on Sunday, the next day, Ruth went to handbell practice at church. And if you don't know what the handbell, it's literally a little bell
Oh,
that you
just
play
in the
like,
hand.
with your hand. But I guess it actually requires some skill.
I was gonna say, that sounds like the easiest instrument. I should learn that, but apparently not.
No, I guess there's a certain way you have to do it, or like to make music with everybody. I don't know. Something over there.
There's intricate ways to use the handbell.
It's all in the flick of the wrist.
Flick of the wrist. I was gonna say that'd be a good episode name, but we've literally already named an episode in the flick of a wrist.
Oh, we did? Which one?
I think we did a few weeks ago.
Oh.
Wait, I kind of want to look.
Actually, I think we did, now that
we
you mentioned
did, right? We're not very creative, that's for sure. Spooky San Diego and a flick of the wrist. Are you kidding me? We just say the same things over and over again.
It's our mottos, okay?
Yeah, a flick of the wrist is our motto.
Yeah, a flick of the wrist, though.
We should get a little dog, or a little dog. What the fuck? Our little ghost logo, putting his little wrist like that. I feel like that's a gay meme too, where they do like the SpongeBob. And they're like,
yeah, they're
is
like,
she, you know?
Did.
Wow, that's more us then. I need to do this.
But yeah, she went to practice and then went to youth group and then went to Will's house for supper.
Will was the friend who she ran away to before?
No, Will was her ex-boyfriend.
Will's her ex-boyfriend. Okay. She's
and
a popular lady.
Will's mother recalls giving her some old clothes, and they just like all remember her being relaxed. Like that was what they said. Like when she was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's odd.
On November 27th, 1995, Ruth disappeared. She was only 16 years old.
Yikes.
Her parents had left for work early that day, so that meant Ruth and her sister Jenny had to catch the bus to get to school. Jenny says that Ruth decided last minute she wasn't gonna go with her on the bus, which Jenny didn't really like think twice about it because she was like in high school, and I guess it was kind of common for her like to not go to school all day, like kind of have half days. Cool. Yeah, basically.
She's an edgy teen.
But yeah, she was just like, what the fuck? Like, okay. But she did find it surprising that Ruth waited so long to tell her. Like, literally, like...
Last second,
right before the bus arrived.
That is really weird.
Which is, like, that's the only thing she found, like, what the fuck? Because she usually... usually you know when you ain't feeling school and you ain't gonna go, you know?
Yeah. Do you think, like, she really did just decide last second, or didn't tell the sister till last second for whatever reason?
I personally think she was contemplating whatever, and she just, like, finally decided last second to actually do it.
Like, fuck it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, whatever her plan was, whatever happened, that, like, she disappeared, I feel like she definitely was contemplating the whole time, like, should I just do it today, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally just said, fuck it, and did it.
Scary.
But yeah, shortly after Jenny got on the bus and left for school, Will showed up in his car and offered to give Ruth a lift.
Okay, weird.
Well, they live near each other, but still it is a little, like, how convenient.
I was gonna say, what are the chances of that happening, though, right after... Like, because normally she'd probably be on the bus.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, or maybe she, like, talked to him the day before and was like, oh, I'm thinking about not doing it or some shit. I don't know.
Maybe. She declined, saying that she would meet up later. But she ended up not going to school all day.
Wow.
Around 11:30 a.m., Ruth took a taxi into Dorking. And I don't know England that well, but I'm guessing it's like a neighboring city.
That's where she worked too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Around midday, she went into Thistle's florist at 257 Dorking High Street and ordered flowers for her stepmother, but asked for them not to be delivered until the following Wednesday.
This feels bad. This feels weird. It's like ominous.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It gets weirder. So Ruth then spent the afternoon in the Dorking Library, and around 4 p.m. she took a taxi from Dorking Railroad Station to Box Hill, which is another little city.
It's another city, okay.
Or just an area, I'm not sure, a little town. I don't know. I don't know England.
We're not England.
We're not England.
We're not.
I'm sorry. She was dropped off on a bridgeway close to a known pub called the Hand to Hand Pub.
It's always sketchy when someone's like, drop me off on this bridge in the middle of nowhere. I'd be like, I'll take you to somewhere where there's other people. You're scaring me.
Facts. The taxi driver stated that Ruth displayed unusual behavior in that after he dropped her off, and started driving away, she just stood there in the rain.
That's so creepy.
Yeah. And obviously to him, not only is it weird that she just stood there, like in the rain, it's just in his experience as a taxi driver, like as soon as like he drops someone off and like drives away, people always like start walking away to wherever.
Yeah, they make their way to their destination.
Yeah.
She's like, this is my destination right here in the middle of this road in the rain. I'm here.
But yeah, in other reports, the taxi driver stated that Ruth appeared to be looking around for someone. Sketch.
Oh, yeah.
But he was the last person to see her at 4:30 p.m.
Damn.
Last confirmed sighting.
4:30 p.m. and what month was it?
I forgot already. I think it was October. Let me go back.
Okay.
November.
I wonder if it was dark.
I feel like it probably was. It was winter.
I was imagining
it was
in the dark.
It was probably gloomy.
And 4 p.m. in winter could be dark.
Yeah. So at the time of her disappearance, Ruth was wearing a knitted jumper, black velvet trousers, black pixie boots, and a small watch on her left wrist.
What are pixie boots? They sound cute.
I don't know. They sound really girly though. She had a small blue duffel bag with a personal stereo and tapes.
That's kind of strange to carry around, no?
Yeah.
Was that like a thing she was known for?
I don't think so, but like she loved her music, so I assume that's the only thing she really cared to take.
Oh yeah, that's true. And side note, I looked it up, and I mean, sunset in Sheffield this year in November, it's at 4:49 p.m. So if not dark, it was probably getting dark.
Yeah.
And if it was raining, it was gloomy for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Liam McAiley, a 58-year-old retired police officer investigating the disappearance, observed that Ruth was, quote, dressed to get into another car. I'm not sure how he came to that conclusion.
Who looks at the way somebody's dressed and they're like, well, they're ready to get into another car, that's for sure. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Does it mean like she wasn't dressed for the rain?
Maybe. I guess that's what he meant.
Yeah, but she could have just been going inside somewhere, not necessarily in another car.
I don't know. That's weird. But he implied that a third party may have been involved in running away, seemed more likely than suicide.
Oh, okay.
He also stated that disappearing completely would be, quote, very difficult.
I was thinking it'd be really difficult if she did commit suicide. Like, how do you guarantee your body's not found?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you have someone get rid of your body, but still, that's excessive.
Yeah. Oof.
I also have to note that she disappeared just 14 days before the 13th anniversary of her mother's death.
Okay, see, you say stuff like that and it makes me think it's suicide. But then I'm like, where would her body be?
But yeah, she didn't come home that night, so obviously her family worried and alerted authorities.
Yeah.
So authorities were called. And they began a search right away. And while searching for her, it was discovered that she frequently went to Box Hill after school.
Oh.
Like, she would go there a lot. So now it's kind of like even more sus.
Yeah, like, was she meeting somebody there?
Yeah, that's what we don't know. And it's like,
I chose a bad topic because we're not going to get any answers from either of our stories.
That's true. I guess they also found out that she was like concerned about her performance at school because they found a report that she had kept from her parents.
Oh, that sucks.
But yeah, on November 29th, just 2 days after Ruth's disappearance, the flowers she ordered were delivered to her stepmother, Karen.
Oh my god. I was waiting for this.
The flowers were described by Ian as an expensive bouquet.
Why?
I don't know. But apparently there was no note attached to the flowers.
That's even weirder. I thought for sure that there would be a note.
Nope. But Catherine, Ruth's friend, thinks that this gesture was sticking 2 fingers up to her to her stepmom.
Damn. Because they didn't like have a good relationship, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm assuming too. Even though they claim that they did.
Sticking
2 fingers up is basically this.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned something
Describe
new
for the
about...
listeners.
Yes, well, the peace sign is you basically put 2 fingers up, and most people know it as the peace sign.
Yeah.
But if you do the V sign, aka the peace sign, with your palm outward, it is acceptable and more widely spread as V for victory. That's kind of how it started. It wasn't until the 1960s during the Vietnam War that it was widely adopted as a symbol of peace.
Oh, like wow.
So with your palm facing
the history. Okay.
But if you do the V sign with your palm inward, it is seen as an insult, especially in England. And so like a handful of other places.
Wow. I thought it was like, peace out, bitch.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you do it, you know?
Yeah.
Most people, I never thought about it. Well, because to us, like, it's, it's the peace sign. But I guess in other
just casual pose in a pictures and you don't know what to do.
Yeah. But I guess if you do it backwards, like facing you, that's a no-no. That's basically like saying, like, fuck you, like, fuck off.
Fuck you, bitch.
Well, yeah, and I guess if you do it, like, with, like, a upward motion, your arm.
Oh, yeah.
Like, kind of like that, that's, like, a huge...
I've seen people do the up arm as, like, a go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that a thing? I have no idea.
I'm not sure.
Who came up with all this body slang?
I don't know. But I mean, I thought about it. I was thinking about it while writing this down, and it kind of makes sense, or like the way I remember it is obviously, the peace sign's like this. Your palm is facing outward, and then when it's inward, your palm is inward, like facing you. I just think about like flipping someone off. You wouldn't flip someone off like facing outward,
That's very true.
Like,
feels so weird.
Like your palm facing outward, like flipping someone off. That's weird. You do your palm towards you when you flip someone off, and that's kind of how I thought about it, and it makes sense.
It's a good way to remember it.
But
This
yeah,
is so not where I thought this conversation was gonna go. Unlike
Peace
the
sign.
nuances of peace
Fuck off.
signs. Yeah.
But yeah, Catherine thinks that the flowers was definitely a fuck you to Karen.
Damn. That's brutal.
I mean, her name is Karen. Come on.
I was gonna say it's fitting that her name's Karen.
On Friday, December 1st, 4 days after she disappeared, the Times newspaper reported that the police found 3 notes hidden under a bush in Box Hill.
Oh, fuck.
Mm-hmm. The notes were basically farewells to her parents, her best friend, and a teenage boy she knew.
Oh, shit. Were they giving off suicide note vibes or runaway vibes?
We don't know. They never released, like, what the notes
What was
or
in
what
it?
they said or anything.
That's a bummer.
Yep. They also found empty packets of paracetamol, which is basically like Tylenol,
Oh, okay.
and half a empty bottle of vermouth, which is wine, a type of wine. That's what I understood. It's alcohol.
Yeah. So she's drinking, possibly.
Yeah, well, they found that nearby.
It could just be anyone's, but it might be hers.
Possibly. On Saturday, December 2nd, the next day, a large-scale search was organized by the police and fire and rescue services, which included 60 volunteers, consisting of local members of the community, schoolmates, colleagues, and wardens of the National Trust.
Wow.
Sounds fancy. They mainly focused near where the notes were found, and then just kind of like went outward from that point.
Okay.
But their search didn't turn anything else up, sadly.
That's so weird.
Right? It just kind of sus. She just found notes. They found like pills,
Where the fuck did she go?
alcohol. But where is she?
Yeah.
Mark Williams Thomas, the family, how do you say it? Liaison?
Yeah,
Liaison officer stated that the extensive searches yielded no evidence to suggest she was killed or committed suicide.
So what they're saying is, we didn't find shit.
Yeah, basically. He also stated that he was sure Ruth wasn't abducted by a stranger and that in his experience, he would suggest one of 2 things occurred. She either went up there to meet someone and subsequently gone away, or she went there and died some way.
But
it's
where
like,
would her
what?
body be?
I don't know.
Because they presumably searched the area very well. It's so weird.
It's sus.
Yeah, super sus.
On December 8th, 1995, Ian and Karen appeared on ITV Network's morning program, This Morning, to appeal to information. On TV, they claimed that they believe Ruth was still alive but afraid to come home. Even more sus.
Yeah,
Like,
why would she be afraid?
Yeah, why? What'd you do?
Oh, I'm so confused.
Suspicious. 8 months after her disappearance, Catherine was visited by police and questioned. But mid-questioning, they started looking in her wardrobe as if she might have been harboring Ruth.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
I feel
they
like
were
they're also
questioning
not
her,
allowed to
it
do
was
that.
like natural, and then all of a sudden they started looking in her wardrobe.
They're like, yeah, so how's your day been going? Just slamming open everything.
That's how I picture it. Ruth's case was assigned the codename Operation Scholar.
Fancy.
And the Surrey police have stated that the investigation would be reopened if any new evidence or lines of inquiry came to light. Now, there has been some possible sightings.
Ooh, okay.
Once on October 6, 1996, almost a year later, The People newspaper said it was believed that Ruth was spotted on the outskirts of London. I guess they got like a few reports that
Dang.
she was near there. Now this one tripped me out. So
Okay.
on the first anniversary of Ruth's disappearance, there was a person thought to resemble Ruth captured on a CCTV at a news agent's shop just 2 miles from Box Hill. The female teenager was distressed and requested a copy of each of the local newspapers and became visibly upset when she was told one had sold out.
What the fuck?
And I guess all the like newspapers basically like were featuring stories
Of
her, Ruth Wilson.
Yeah.
So yeah, the newspaper's shop owner reported the encounter to police and saved the CCTV footage because he thought it was kind of weird and was like,
Yeah.
Ruth's parents were shown the footage and they stated in an article in the Times that they believed the girl in the video was Ruth.
Wow. That's kind of crazy that she'd go back, presumably like reliving the experience, I guess. The same town, you said?
Yeah.
Like, that is
or
crazy.
It was just 2 miles from Box Hill where she disappeared from.
That's like really close to it though. Whoa.
It's like, what are the odds that she literally like just moved the town over?
That's what I was thinking, because if I was running away and didn't want anyone to know where I was going, I'd go to like a different country if I could.
Yeah, I'd go far, like super
far as you can.
But it came up that she didn't like have her passport or anything with her, so they know she couldn't travel far. Unless she got like paid for some fake papers or something.
Yeah, or like got smuggled in or something.
Maybe. It's possible. Yeah. I don't know.
That's crazy if she was in the next town like the entire year and just no one knew.
Right. On the 10th anniversary, Shane Craven, the head of the East Surrey Police, spoke and stated that in the weeks following Ruth's disappearance, there were some fairly reliable sightings of her in Dorking area by people who knew her well.
Oh.
Which is like, huh.
Interesting.
Very interesting. It's like they didn't like try to approach her or anything.
Yeah, they weren't like, "Hey, Ruth."
Yeah.
Well, I guess if they weren't totally sure if it was her, that could really like sketch out a stranger.
That's true. Have you ever done that? Mistaken a stranger for someone you thought you knew, or like you thought it was?
I can't think of anything that I've done, but I know one time my dad pulled over to rolled down his window or something and like yelled at like a teenage girl saying if she wanted to ride because he thought it was my friend who was supposed to be coming over later that day, and it was not. So he just like super creeped someone out.
Damn.
Yeah. But I don't know if I have, it wasn't as bad as that.
Yeah, definitely. I can't think of a time.
Oh, well, actually, one time recently, I thought that I saw somebody on the freeway that I used to work with. And it, like, looked so much like the person to me that I actually texted them and was like, "Are you on blah, blah, blah freeway?" And they're like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I thought I saw you."
That's funny.
Yeah. What about you?
She was probably like, "What the fuck?"
Oh, yeah, no. She's like, "How are you?" And I answered, and she never responded again. And I was like, "Okay."
Oh, damn. I remember that.
It did be like that.
I'm pretty sure it's happened to me, but I honestly can't think of anything.
Nothing like memorable.
Yeah, I don't think it's been that bad.
Okay.
The only thing that's popping up is this really awkward memory I have of someone like waving, and I thought they were waving to me and talking to me, and I like waved back, and then they were like, "Oh no, behind you." I was like, "Oh fuck."
Oh, they told you? Why didn't they just pretend that they were saying hi? Fuck.
It's brutal, man.
They had to call you out.
They did. They were like, sorry, awkward. I was like, shit.
That's rough.
But yeah, there's been like sightings reported as far as Canada.
Wow.
Wild. There's been like really sightings of her everywhere though.
Dang. I looked at a picture of her. She looks really young.
Yeah,
Obviously,
she's only
16's young.
16, bro.
Yeah, you say 16, and then, all these TV shows have, like, 30-year-olds playing 16-year-olds. And then you actually see a 16-year-old, you're like, oh my god, you're a child.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very
Life
true.
is not the CW.
Nowadays, they don't look their age.
They act it, though.
Sometimes.
I think of everyone who's like, oh, what's that Akon song? He's like grinding on like a teenager or some shit like 10 years ago. And he's like, wrote a song saying, how was I supposed to know she was underage? And I'm like, if you've ever spoken to somebody underage, you know. They're very annoying.
In those situations, you don't really talk.
That's true. And I don't know, Akon. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know. In 2018, a local newspaper sent out an appeal to anybody who had known Ruth at the time and come forward with any information that could shed light on the disappearance. That same year, John Savelle, the chief.
The chief of all the sheep.
The chief superintendent of the public protection at Surrey Police gave a review of the case in which he stated there are 5 explanations for Ruth's disappearance.
Okay, I'm ready.
A tragic accident, abduction, suicide, murder, or that she had just done it on purpose to start a new life.
I don't even know what I'm leaning towards.
It's kind of like, fuck, dude. I don't know.
It's like, I feel like she ran away, but I feel like there's no way she could stay, like, hidden this long.
I feel like she could have, but I don't think she did it alone. I think someone helped her. Someone older.
And the more people that know the secrets, like, everyone, they're going to tell somebody eventually, And eventually somebody would be like, oh, by the way, this missing girl has, like, been my neighbor for 10 years.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah. Unless these are, like, the best secret keepers.
I don't know why, but I was... No, never mind, that doesn't make sense. But I had a theory that, like, maybe she found out that her mom, like, died by suicide, supposedly, or something was said that she just became suspicious of her dad and her stepmom. And I feel like maybe she sought out to, like, find her mom's family.
Okay, that could be it. But they'd probably come forward, though, no?
Yeah, but I don't think it would be because her mom was actually adopted, so I don't know if she could even, like, find her mom's family. Yeah, that'd be really
hard to track them down.
Yeah, I don't
especially know. Then, like, you don't have, like, Ancestry.com.
Yeah. But yeah, there's, like, there's a lot of theories out there of why, like, of her disappearance. The most common one is that after she found out that her dad or her mom committed suicide, that she just felt like unwanted almost, and just couldn't take it no more.
I feel like betrayed. He didn't tell her.
Yeah, they were just kind of betrayed by her dad because, like, he kept that from her, and then also betrayed by her mom, like, she didn't love me type thing.
Yeah,
that's the most common one I read about, and then the other ones were just like, she just had enough and left, and something happened along the way, possibly.
I feel like something must have happened along the way if she was suddenly not wanting to be at home and stuff. I don't know if that's just normal teenage stuff. I'm getting too old. I can't remember being a teenager anymore.
True.
Being 24 has changed me. What do you think?
I don't know. I feel like part of me thinks that she did run away. But I feel like, for me, like, the two ways that this could have gone is, one way is she had help. There was someone, I don't know, maybe she met someone or somebody was helping her.
Some creepy older dude.
Yeah, maybe. Or, like, some creepy older lady that she knew. I don't know. Like, someone, I think, either someone helped her and, like, got her, like, fake papers, like, so she could start a new life, basically, all that.
Yeah.
Or she ran away, but happened to meet someone not so
good.
Yeah, not so good. And that's why they haven't found her, because he got rid of her body type thing, you know?
That's something I didn't think about. Even if she did intentionally run away, that doesn't mean that necessarily something didn't happen to her later on, and that's why no one's heard from her.
Yeah. That's
scary.
very.
Ugh.
But yeah, there was actually a documentary about the case called Vanish the Surrey Schoolgirl.
Whoa. Is it on like any big streaming platforms?
I'm not sure. I didn't check that.
Well, I'm gonna look it up after.
But yeah, it came out in 2018.
Oh, I love it when they're newer too and they're not made like the 90s.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of weird though, because they asked Ruth's parents if they wanted to like be involved, and they declined.
I wonder why.
So either like if they really did think she was alive, why would you
not like take this opportunity to be like, please come home?
Yeah.
Because if she was still alive and that sighting of her really was her, it sounds like she's very interested in her own case in a way. Like she probably follows it.
She's probably like, haha, I'm getting away with it.
Yeah. It's weird. If that's really what's happening, she kind of has that in common with like serial killers and shit. That they're like, like watching it. Yeah. The perfect crime.
True.
I also wonder if she had somebody older helping her. Like maybe she's like, oh, this person's going to help me run away and start a new life. And the person actually hurt her, maybe.
Turned on her. Yeah, that's possible too.
There's so many. There's
like
so many scenarios.
There really is. It's really like, wow.
I like how this one is interesting because you don't even like automatically assume she was abducted or anything like most you would missing people. You're like, it sounds like she ran away, but how is she still not found? And at first, like, I was really leaning towards like suicide, but I feel like, how would you kill yourself in a way that nobody could find your body unless someone else helped you? I guess.
Yep. That's why it's sus.
You chose a really suspect one. You really did.
You know me.
Yeah, I do. I've never heard that story either.
Hell yeah. I always go for the ones nobody's heard of.
Yeah, I was trying to do that too.
Yeah, I haven't heard of yours.
There are a lot of French names in it, by the way, so you're going to have to bear with me for that. French Canadians. Okay. Ready for my story?
Yeah.
Okay. This week, I'm going to be talking about the disappearance of Melanie Ethier. And like I said, they're all French Canadian in the story, so I try my best with the pronunciation, but if it's wrong, my bad. Melanie was born on December 25th, 1980 in Canada, so she was a Christmas baby. Melanie was an honors student at her school in New Liskeard, Ontario. She was described as being bubbly and always happy, with a lovely personality, good spirit, and a sense of responsibility. She was bilingual, a ballerina, Highland dancer, and roller skater. Her favorite song was Give Me One Reason by Tracy Chapman. She acted almost as a second mother to her younger sister Jessie, who was only 5 when Melanie went missing. Melanie was biracial and one of only 3 Black girls in her entire community, which is insane.
Yeah.
So her father was actually from Africa, though she didn't have a relationship with him, and her mom is white. At the time of her disappearance, Melanie was working at a local daycare where her mom, Selene, also worked and was in the process of learning self-defense from a family friend. She was 15 years old, 5'5", and 120 pounds, with brown eyes and long braided black hair. On Saturday, September 28th, 1996, Melanie and her best friend had been out and about shopping in New Liskeard. Melanie bought a cake pan and a cake as her grandma's birthday was coming up and they were celebrating the next day. The 2 girls met up with Melanie's new boyfriend of a few weeks, 3 male friends, and a girlfriend of one of the boys, who left the group before dark. So the girl who left was walking home with her large dog when a white delivery van actually pulled up to her to ask for directions. She said there were 2 unkempt men in their 30s, both wearing wife-beater tank tops. And the conversation was like making her kind of uncomfortable because this was such a small community. So she was like, why the fuck wouldn't you know like all these streets if you were here? And her dog began to like bark at them aggressively and they drove off.
Sketch.
So sketch. Around 9 p.m., the remaining group, Melanie's group, went to rent a movie from a video rental store. Interestingly enough, the employee who rang them up was actually the sister of one of the boys and paid for them to rent their movie. At around 10:30 p.m., she also spotted what she believes is the same white van seen by Melanie's friend's girlfriend earlier. She said it looked like a beat-up white utility van with no signage, but was unable to secretly write down the license plate number because it was parked in a dark spot. So she thought it was sketchy enough that she wanted to write it down. She just couldn't. One man from the van came into the store, ignoring the girl's attempts to help him find what he's looking for, and just kind of loitered around before leaving without saying anything the entire time he was there. He was wearing dirty blue work pants, a grungy white shirt which looked like yellowed, and work boots. He had sandy blonde hair and was average build, in his mid-40s, and stood around 5'8" to 5'9". She felt so threatened by this dude's creepy behavior that she actually called her dad to pick her up when the store closed at 11, even though she normally walked home. And this employee was never spoken to about her experience until 2020.
What?
24 years later, bro. It's like, how... it's frustrating. Needless to say.
What the fuck?
So I was listening to a podcast that I'll mention again later. It's called Shedding Light. I only listened to their episodes on Melanie, and I didn't totally finish the last one. But they like were talking to her, and they were like, "Oh, when did you tell the police about this?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't think that they know." And then the next episode, they're like, "Yeah, so the police only just found out about this." And I was like, "Holy shit!"
Damn, bro.
Fuck. So anyway. While this was going on, Melanie's group headed back to her house. She spoke to her mom and said they couldn't go to the house they were planning to watch movies at, so she asked if they could all watch them there. Her mom made a comment to her about how her room was pretty messy and not really suited for guests, and Melanie just smiled and said, "Let's go, guys," before the group headed out to watch it somewhere else. Celine watched her daughter and friends leave from the sidewalk, noting that it was unusual behavior for herself because she normally didn't see her off. But this was the last time she saw Melanie. Around 10, the group relocated to one of the boys' house, about a 10-minute walk away from Melanie's. They watched movies in the boy's basement as his parents slept upstairs. By 12:30 in the morning, a couple of friends had left before the movie ended, before Melanie's best friend also had to go because she was getting a ride back to a neighboring town of Haleyberry. On her way to her ride, she had a scary encounter with a suspicious car that began to slowly approach her as she crossed an intersection, and it felt to her almost like they were assessing her. It freaked her out so much that she actually began to fucking run to her ride, like she just booked it out of there. By now, the only people left from the friend group were Melanie, her boyfriend, and the boy whose house they were at. About an hour later, around 1:30 or 2 a.m., Melanie also left. She was walked to the door by one of the boys, who watched as she headed west down Pine Avenue East to her home, which was a little bit over half a mile away. She actually never really walked home alone either, so this was kind of abnormal for her. A witness reported seeing Melanie walking on the Armstrong Street Bridge, crossing south over the Wabi River, and this is the last known sighting of Melanie. At the time, she was wearing a green Nike jacket, blue jeans, a white shirt with a blue heart Pepe logo, and black boots. Along Pine Avenue and the bridge, it was well lit and a fairly busy street. As she got closer to her home, she would have had to take a short side street that was a little darker and more isolated, but the moon was in its waning gibbous phase, so you know what that means. Right? No. So it means that it would have been a full moon a few days earlier, and it was like in between 3/4 and full moon, so pretty bright, actually. I actually even looked up like the date, and I was like, moon phase. I found a map showing her walk, and the bridge was like so extremely close to Melanie's house. So if she was last seen there, she must have been less than a fifth a mile away from her house by my guesstimation.
Damn.
Which is terrifying, because you always think, oh, home's right there. Nothing bad can happen. Bad things happen everywhere. Wait, I want to show you how close it was. So she started from the bottom and was going to the top one, and look where the bridge is.
Oh, shit.
It's right there, dude.
Literally.
And it was already a short walk already. Oh, that's so scary.
I would have just ran home.
Yeah, I know. I have no idea what happened that she couldn't do that. So the next morning, Selene woke up to the sound of Melanie's alarm going off. She went to turn it off and noticed Melanie wasn't there, but she didn't think that this was like really concerning because in the past she'd just fallen asleep while hanging out with friends and would just stay the night. So Selene just went back to bed. Later that afternoon, when Melanie didn't show up for a babysitting job, her mom began to contact first her friends and then the local police to report her as missing. Thankfully, police actually responded really quickly, so an emergency response team was dispatched to begin a search for Melanie. The area around Armstrong Bridge was checked, along with the banks of Wabi River. Local police requested help, and on October 1st, a helicopter, a police dog team, and a search and rescue dog team were all sent out to expand the search in the area, which was now including around Pine Avenue. About a week later, they sent out divers to look in the river, but were unable to find any signs of Melanie. There was no reason for her to run away, so it was suspected pretty much immediately that she was missing as a result of foul play. There was no crime scene to look at, but the place she was last seen was nearby the Trans-Canada Highway, which was worrying because any stranger driving by could have happened upon her. But when I say it was near it, like, they would have had to actually get off the highway, which might have been kind of weird, but if they were getting gas, maybe. I don't know. Police began door-to-door canvassing, but did not search any homes in the area. All of Melanie's friends who she had been with before her disappearance were interviewed, and during these stated that they had not consumed any alcohol or drugs that night, and police said that they believed them. They were also polygraphed and were eliminated as suspects, but her then-boyfriend says that even now he still gets blamed by locals for her going missing, either by murdering her or being negligent. He considers not walking her home to be the biggest regret of his life. And the boy whose house they were at felt extremely guilty as well and wished that he had the foresight to walk her home. Which I get, but there's really no way of saying, like, what if somebody took her and they took you too, you know?
Yeah.
Or
That's
you were walking
put
back.
on somebody.
That is a lot. Especially, they're like teenage boys. Like, they're children, basically. That's a lot. And what if, like, they were just looking for anyone and they walked Melanie home or were headed back home and they got kidnapped? Like, there's no way to say, yeah, there's no way to say if you were there, nothing bad would have happened. Because you just don't know that. Melanie's disappearance terrified people in the community, and local students later said that they were scared for their lives. There was briefly an increase in parents driving their kids to school functions for about 6 months to a year, but then concern slowly started to fade away and the kids went back to walking. By mid-October of 96, the case was listed with Crime Stoppers, and the community was asked to phone in any tips that could lead to the location of Melanie. Missing posters and billboards began to show up as well, some of which are actually still up today. One shows a picture of Melanie and says, "You know what happened to me, so why don't you help?" Selene began to put a lot of work in herself, contacting media throughout Canada in hopes of gaining more attention for her missing daughter. A reward of $1,000 was offered for any resolution to the case, which was then doubled to $2,000 around Christmas '96, and in 1998 it was increased yet again to $25,000. 2 detectives were assigned to work the case full-time and began to re-interview witnesses in early 1997 to see if anything was missed. The task force delegated to the search was eventually disbanded in 1998, but these 2 would still continue to work when new leads came up until one retired and another changed jobs. Over the course of their investigations, they questioned hundreds of suspects and persons of interest. In 1999, a search was done on the area to the east of New Liskeard, which had not been searched before, and in 2000, police took materials from a landfill in McGarry as part of the investigation into a rumor that a group of teens was responsible for her death. But they have not said what they were grabbing from the landfill. There have been a lot of criticisms pointed, I think correctly, at the police. So for reasons I just stated, as well as a few more, they were thought to treat Melanie's male friends from the night she went missing super harshly, and they would question them at school with no parents present. The friend who said she ran away from a suspicious car was only interviewed informally and in a parking lot. A former detective who is now a professor of criminology in Ontario criticized Ontario police in 2017 and in 2020 for withholding facts about the case from the public that could have led to more tips. There are several different theories as to what exactly happened to Melanie that I'm going to get into, So one that was dismissed pretty quickly was that her father may have kidnapped her, but police already thought this was unlikely and he was cleared of any suspicion. Some people have suggested she could have been roped into sex trafficking, but even her mom thinks that this is probably wrong. So I never really thought about it before, but the podcast I was listening to, they said, I don't know if this is accurate, just people said this and I believe them, but they said that usually people who like end up in sex trafficking rings, they're kind of like lured there slowly. It's not usually just a case of somebody's just abducted and now you're in sex trafficking, you know? Which makes sense. I mean, it definitely happens, but it's not more likely. One theory that the Ontario police think is possible is that Melanie was lured into a car by someone she knew or was abducted by a stranger who drove her away from the search area and killed her. A bar about 2 blocks away closing around the time she was headed home, which would have put her on the street at the same time as all like these drunk adults. Also near Pine Avenue were 3 different weddings and possibly a small party going on, so any one of these drunk guests could have seen Melanie and taken advantage of her being alone to attack her. Her route home also took her past 2 gas stations, which were likely open at the time, so even more strangers for her to possibly walk home past.
Also witnesses, though.
Yeah, you know, that's actually surprising. I didn't think about that. How did more people not see her? Because it sounds like there's fucking everything was going on Pine Avenue. But apparently there were 2 police patrolling near the bar to like make sure everyone was headed back home, and they didn't see anything unusual, at least. But it could have happened so quick, so. In the same vein, a drunk driver could have potentially killed Melanie. At the time she went missing, bars in Ontario were only open until 2 a.m., while bars in the nearby Quebec were open until 3. Witnesses from a local bar that night submitted tips saying they saw a drunk person leaving the bar early to go to another bar in Ontario before last call, and this person, or anyone else who was doing the same thing, could have hit Melanie on accident. I guess it was common for them to be like, oh, they're closing. Better go head to the other one. And just fucking drunk drive there. Another tip claimed that a person who was recently out of jail with a suspended license had hit Melanie and in a panic either buried her or loaded her body into his trunk. The location the tipster said she was buried did not have any of Melanie's remains, despite them doing a dig. In the early days of the investigation, it was thought that her disappearance may have been the result of a hate crime, as there were white supremacist groups active in the area in the 90s. So like I said earlier, she was one of only 3 black girls in her community, and the other 2 were placed under police surveillance initially after her case because they were afraid that they were going to be targeted next. These girls were occasionally spotted by witnesses and mistakenly reported to the police as being sightings of Melanie. Because of the many oversights made by police during the investigation, it's even possible that a police officer or someone associated with the department may be responsible for Melanie going missing. This could explain the mistakes made in the case if they were actually just cover-ups. A witness said that days before she went missing, a police officer was asking around town about a Melanie Ethier as though they were like concerned for her, which is kind of fucking random and weird. Another person online posted a blog that no longer exists that she believed her stepfather, who was a cop in the area around that time, had killed Melanie. There was a rumor going around that 3 hunters from the U.S. had murdered Melanie, but a conservation officer with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry in New Liskeard does not believe that this is possible. He says that at the time she went missing, the only hunting seasons that were open were for small game and bear, and at the time most bear hunting took place in spring, not fall, as well as it being required that big game hunters stay at the licensed outfitter or lodge. Also, the small game hunting rarely brought people into town. A documentary, which I could not find anywhere that I looked, suggested that she could be one of over 600 unidentified people whose remains are kept in Canadian morgues and cemeteries. That one kind of stressed me out. So I was like, oh my god, how would anyone even know?
Yeah.
It scares me whenever I read about, people's unidentified bodies. I'm like, what do you mean it's unidentified? Identify it. At the time of Melanie's disappearance, there were 3 known serial predators active near her area. Paul Allen Hickey was a reported sexual offender who murdered 2 people and sexually assaulted a few others around the time Melanie went missing. However, his MO didn't seem to match the details of Melanie's case, so he was not considered a suspect. Michael Wayne McRae is in prison for killing 7 people, although he claims to have killed 11 more than that. His span of crimes ran from 1985 to 1998, and he has said that his murders happened all over Canada and even in Seattle in the US. He blames his urge to kill on being beaten as a child, which is not a good excuse. Plenty of people are abused and do not become serial killers. Unfortunately, he said that he'll only talk about these other cases if specific demands are met, which I'm assuming they have not because it doesn't seem like he said anything else. In 1999, about 8 hours from New Liskeard, a 16-year-old girl named Julie Surprenant also went missing. She was last seen getting off of a bus stop about 160 feet from her home. Again, 160 feet and you go missing. How does that happen? After her disappearance, her neighbor Richard Bullion, a convicted sexual predator, was considered the prime suspect, but unfortunately there was no actual evidence to charge him. In 2006, Richard confessed to 2 different nurses that he had raped and killed Julie while on his deathbed. According to this confession, he had stuffed her body into a sports bag with rocks and thrown it into a river across from a church. Initially, one of the nurses had told their bosses about the confession and thought it had been passed on to the police, but apparently it had not. They didn't realize until 2011 when they were watching a TV show that mentioned Julie and said the case was unsolved when they're like, what the fuck, and reached out to the police themselves. And this got the case reopened. Based on the 2 nurses' witness reports and that of 2 guards who also overheard the conversation, the coroner's report was released saying that Richard Bullion was guilty of raping and murdering Julie. Unfortunately, they were never able to find Julie's body, though. And I was like, how does anything bad happen when you're 160 feet away from your home? He lived above her, which means that they were in the same building.
Oh.
How does something happen when you're in the building you live in? How does that happen? I don't like that. Obviously. So, you might be wondering, how the fuck does this relate to Melanie? Well, I mean, first of all, they were both young teenage girls and both went missing close to their homes. Neither of their bodies have ever been found. And these cases are only 3 years apart, which I think feels like really close. Also, apparently Richard had confessed to several other crimes while on his deathbed, but for whatever reason, these were not investigated by any police further. The only iffy part to me, which I think makes you believe this more, because they're like, oh, it was so close. He was 8 hours away. So unless he had lived closer to her, was on vacation, I'm a little unsure about this one. The last theory I'm going to be talking about is that Melanie's case is related to the murder of a man named Louis Gauthier. This one is a little all over the place, so bear with me because I swear they do correlate at some point. So in April of 1996, 47-year-old Louis, it's probably Louis if they're French, huh?
Probably.
Okay, so Louis Gauthier was murdered in Thornlow, about 20 minutes north of New Liskeard. His killers were 2 teenagers, actually. A 17-year-old named Robert Goulet and his half-brother, who was only identified as ML due to him being a minor. The 2 had help from their uncle, Gregory Crick, planning the murder. Apparently, Louis was not a great dude and had actually been in a sexual relationship with ML, who, like I said, was underage. But honestly, I think from Gregory, the uncle's point of view, it was more homophobia than actually being concerned for his nephew, which is kind of unfortunate. The night of the murder, Gregory drove the 2 underage boys to the scene, urged them to finish the job, provided false alibis, and directed the destruction of evidence. At the time, none of them were arrested. Several months later, Robert Goulet went missing in New Liskeard. This was just 2 months after Melanie disappeared, but unlike Melanie, his body was eventually found in April of 1998. So it was determined that either ML or his uncle Gregory had killed Robert because they thought he was telling people about murdering Louis Gauthier and that the police would find out. They actually did find out, and the 2 were arrested for that, along with killing Robert. So not only did they kill this adult, they went and killed their nephew / half-brother, too. How fucked is that?
Very fucked.
And I swear this will relate to Melanie at some point. It sounds like I'm just kind of telling you random stories. In 1998, a teenage girl who was incarcerated along with ML claimed that he confessed to murdering Melanie to her, but he has since denied this. According to another witness, they had been in a party in October of 1996, so a month after Melanie went missing, and Robert Goulet was there. He had apparently admitted to this witness that he had disposed of a body by putting it in a wood chipper. Supposedly, another acquaintance of them told them a story that his relative had raped and killed Melanie before putting her through a wood chipper. Police used wiretaps to monitor ML, Robert, and Gregory, but were unable to find any evidence that they were related to Melanie's case. Also, the wood chipper thing is so fucking disturbing. But I guess the movie Fargo had been released not too long before, and they do that in Fargo, so it may have just been like they were copying this movie, just talking shit. But wait, there's more. In 1996, these guys keep coming up, this little trio. In 1996, Robert and ML publicly harassed 2 black girls in New Liskeard, calling them racial slurs and threatening to shoot and kill them. One of the girls, Sarah, would occasionally buy drugs from the boys. She also apparently looked like really similar to Melanie, so much so that people confused the two, and she lived on Pine Avenue, which is like one of the roads that Melanie took when she was walking home the last night that anyone saw her. On Friday, September 27th, 1996, the day before Melanie went missing, Sarah told a friend that she owed money to a local drug dealer and was scared for her life, telling the friend that they wouldn't be surprised if she went missing over the weekend. Sarah didn't find out about Melanie going missing until September 30th, but when she did, she was like shocked. So now it gets fucking weirder. Brandy, tell me why Sarah began to refer to herself as Melanie and started to dress in similar clothes that she would wear after she went missing.
What?
Isn't that so weird? She
Yes.
would call herself Melanie and dress like her. And a few days after her disappearance, Sarah was apparently at a bowling alley and told people that she was Melanie Ethier. I don't fucking understand that, because that was the weirdest shit to me. And she actually knew Melanie too, so it wasn't like she was pretending to be a stranger.
That's sus.
It's so sus. And it's possible that maybe she was kind of afraid for her life, so she didn't want to be associated with her name, but I don't know why she would be like, yeah, I'm the name of this missing girl. That's not going to get you any less attention. And apparently she was not the only one either. Other kids would dress similar to Melanie and walk along the road, leading to false tips being called in. How fucking weird is that?
That's super weird. Was this some kind of rebellion?
I don't know. I'm like, you guys are dealing with this fucking odd. So the other girl who was accosted with Sarah and called racial slurs does not think that Melanie was the victim of a hate crime nor a random attack. She thinks that there's a chance that she was actually supposed to be the target of the brothers that night, since they had threatened her, but they had gone to Melanie instead. Or more likely that Sarah was their intended victim for whatever reason. As of 2020, Sarah has not had any contact with any of her friends or family, and I listened to Melanie's story on that podcast. I was talking about shedding light, and they believe that she could hold a lot of answers to the case, so they were trying to get a hold of her. But it seems like maybe she might have addiction problems and stuff, and kind of just went off and stopped talking to everyone. And it was kind of funny because on the podcast they were interviewing the other girl she didn't want her name used, but they were like, okay, and what happened to Sarah after Melanie went missing? And she was like, oh yeah, Sarah went crazy. And I was like, damn girl.
Damn.
Somehow there is even more about these ML and Robert dudes. Apparently there was another girl that Melanie went to school with who was a year older than her and had the same name, Melanie Ethier.
What?
Yeah, dude, this story is so weird. And it felt like everywhere I was reading about Canadian cases, a lot of them have the same French last names, it seemed. But it was so confusing to them. Whenever they got called to the principal's office, they would call them by their first and middle names because they had the same name. During an interview in 2020, other Melanie, that's what I'm going to call her, said that at the time of Melanie's disappearance, police were very interested in her friendship with a student who happened to be dating, you guessed it, ML. The police thought that ML and Robert may have thought that other Melanie knew about the crimes, maybe they told the best friend and the best friend talked to her. And to make it even more confusing, other Melanie was cousins with Louis Gauthier, who the brothers murdered earlier that year. It's just all so connected. Other Melanie said that the last time she spoke to ML was in a park near her home with a couple other friends. He was acting anxious and weird, insisting that someone was watching them. He asked other Melanie if she thought that he had killed her cousin, and she said no, even though she's like, yeah, no, I definitely thought he killed my cousin. Police suggested to other Melanie, who looked nothing like her either, that perhaps the brothers had actually sent someone to attack and kill her, but maybe this person was like only given a name, so they were like, oh, Melanie Ethier, like that's her name, and chose the wrong Melanie. Other Melanie believes that ML was involved in the disappearance of Melanie Ethier. Because Melanie that went missing was like 5'5" and black and like slim, and this other girl described herself as being short, fat, and white. So very different.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is finally it for that little trio. But I also read one thing that a relative of Melanie claimed to be contacted by police in 2005 to alert them that a man in their custody had admitted to knowing what happened to Melanie before killing himself. And that's all I saw about, was just a one-liner on Wikipedia, so that could not be true. I don't know. But yeah, that is it for the theories. I'm probably most inclined to believe that it was either Emil and Robert Goulet, or that was a random attack personally, especially like with all the weird connections between Melanie and the two brothers, and it was just like super sketchy. It could just be a bunch of coincidences, but it was a lot of coincidences that they were all connected.
Like that's too many.
Exactly. Especially, because initially I was like, oh, it sounds like it was like they're going for the Sarah girl, but now I'm like, it kind of sounds like they like try to put a hit on Melanie Ethier, and somebody just only got the name because they were so connected with the other one. It was weird. They literally murdered this other one's cousin. Yeah, it's just odd. Weird. Yeah. It's worth mentioning that the police do not think that ML and that whole trio were involved, though. But I don't know. I kind of think so. As of now, there are still no answers as to what happened to Melanie, and the reward for resolution of her disappearance stands at $50,000. There have been several digs in different places all over where people said her body may be buried. In 2020, they said they were still receiving about 2 to 3 tips a month on the case, and they do follow up on tips made to them by psychics. Police believe that Melanie is deceased. Céline Ethier also thinks that her daughter is no longer alive and regards the last 24 years as a very long funeral, and she just wants it to be over and have answers as to what really happened that night, and so she could bury her daughter. And her mom actually has an active Facebook page, and you can go and find it. I believe it's like Finding Melanie Ethier or Bringing Melanie Ethier Home. And yeah, she like posts on there frequently. She just posted on there like a few days ago. So yeah, that is it for my story. Thank you all for listening. Anything else, Brandy?
No.
Okay. If you guys want to email us anything, you can at thespookyshit.pod@gmail.com. Our Instagram and Twitter are spookyshit_pod, and our website is spookyshit-pod.com. Thanks for listening, and catch you guys next week. Goodbye.
Bye.